In my previous life, I scrimped and saved to put my boyfriend, James, through college. He was deeply moved, swearing over and over that he would marry me after graduation. He even took my first time. But when graduation came, he suddenly broke up with me and turned around to marry a girl from the city. Devastated, I crashed his wedding and smashed everything I could lay my hands on. He accused me of ruining his perfect day. Afraid that I might go insane and destroy his future, he hired someone to run me over. Now, I've been reborn. At this moment, he has just registered for the college entrance exam and is worried about tuition. Emily, why are you worrying? Just focus on the exam. I'll handle the tuition, he said. James stood before me, his face full of worry. You know I'm good at studying. If I take the exam, I'll definitely pass. It's just, my family is poor. I stared at his slightly tanned yet undeniably handsome face, my body trembling uncontrollably. In my previous life, he had indeed registered for the college entrance exam but was worried about the tuition fees if he passed. So, he came to me to complain about his troubles. University students were rare and precious in the 1980s. Knowing his academic potential, I couldn't bear to see him troubled over money. I readily agreed to cover his tuition and living expenses for 4 years. Yet, after all my efforts, when he graduated, he sent me a letter breaking up with me. I couldn't believe it and went to confront him, only to be thrown out. Don't you know your place? He sneered. I'm a college graduate now. How could a village girl like you ever match me? That day, he was in the middle of his wedding to a rich city girl. He threw $10 at my face and had people chase me away. I was left with no options and caused a scene at his wedding. He thought I had humiliated him and ruined his big day. Afraid I'd continue to trouble him, he had his mother wait for me on the road back to the village and arranged for me to be hit by a car. It was the 1980s, and there weren't even surveillance cameras in the village. A death was just a death. My body wasn't discovered until a month later, already decomposed beyond recognition. The villagers assumed I had slipped and fallen while walking in the hills. The village chief had someone bury me, and the matter was left at that. Now, my fists clenched tightly, and I stared at the repulsive face in front of me. The fury buried deep in my heart erupted like a raging fire. Emily, did you hear me? He said, his face full of urgency as he reached out to embrace me. Disgusted, I instinctively dodged his touch. He froze for a moment and cautiously asked, Emily, what's wrong? I coldly glared at him. In my previous life, I found out after my death that his family's supposed inability to afford tuition was all an act. Their real plan was to save their money for his younger brother, Tommy, who had been in a 3-year relationship. The family decided to allocate their funds to help Tommy marry instead, believing that as a college graduate, James's future would be bright, and finding a wife for him later wouldn't be an issue. I, the fool, was their target. They tricked me into financing his education, promising he'd treat me well and marry me once he graduated. I gave him everything, only to end up dead. Now that I've been given a second chance, I'll make sure they suffer a fate worse than death. With that thought, I sneered coldly and questioned him. Can't afford tuition? I heard your mom is saving money to pay for Tommy's bride price. $1,000, right? That's not just enough for tuition. It could cover several years of living expenses. So how could you possibly have no money for tuition? Cold sweat instantly dripped down James's face. He stammered, Emily, how do you know about that? He looked down, guilty and flustered. It's true. They are saving up for Tommy's bride price. But it's because Lily's brother is pressuring him to bring out the money, or else she'll break up with him. Tommy is useless. If Lily leaves him, where would he ever find another girlfriend? My mother was planning to deliver the bride price money to Tommy in the next few days, thinking it was better to formalize the engagement between him and Lily to ensure she wouldn't leave him. James avoided my gaze, his eyes darting nervously, and he didn't even dare lift his head. I stared at him, unrelenting, until sweat began to bead and drip from his tense forehead. Suddenly, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I reached out and patted the back of his hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I said earnestly. As long as you get into college, I'll eat scraps and go hungry if I have to, but I'll make sure you can study. He froze for a moment, Then a flash of joy crossed his eyes. Really? But the bride price for Lily. That money will definitely go to Lily. I replied with a comforting smile. I'll take responsibility. After all, the oldest sister-in-law is like a mother. Once we're family, it's only right for me to help out. Then, as if a thought had just struck me, I added, by the way, since the bride price is for your brother to get married, what if Lily takes the money and runs? Wouldn't it be better to have some kind of assurance? Maybe she should get pregnant with a child from your family sooner rather than later. James hesitated briefly, but a glint of determination quickly replaced his doubt. That's simple, he said. I'll have my brother lure her to our house a few times. That'll take care of it. I smiled faintly, but my fists clenched so tightly that my fingertips turned white. In my previous life, James's mother had planned to have me killed by running me over, while Lily distracted the villagers at the other end of town. They were all banking on James making a name for himself in the city so he could bring them along to live a better life. They were terrified that I would ruin his future and shatter their family's dreams of wealth. This time, none of them would escape unscathed. After I gave James a firm reply, he left. Satisfied. The moment he was gone, all the strength drained from my body, and I collapsed onto the ground. Back then, in order to support his college education, I endured countless hardships. I even moved to the city and took a dishwashing job near his university to earn more money. When I handed him the money in person, he told me not to show up again, saying my presence would distract him from his studies. So, I stopped going to see him. Instead, I saved up every penny and sent it to him. City rents were expensive, and I didn't have much money. I ended up sharing a crowded apartment with some aunts who were also working in the city. Every day, I walked 2 hours to and from work because I didn't dare spend money on bus fare. I felt that every cent I spent meant one less meal for James. I believed that once he graduated and became successful, I would finally live a life of comfort. It was that hope that sustained me for 4 long years. When he finally graduated, I heard he had landed a job at a newspaper. I was filled with anticipation, thinking he would come to marry me. But instead, I found out he was getting married to the daughter of the newspaper's editor-in-chief. The news hit me like a bolt of lightning. I rushed to his wedding, causing a huge scene and smashing everything I could. In the end, he handed me $10 and told his people to send me back where I came from. I stared at the light, flimsy $10 bill in my hands, feeling as if the world was spinning. Over the past 4 years, I had spent more than $800 on his tuition alone, not to mention the living expenses. He had told me he needed to eat well to avoid being looked down upon by his classmates. I had suffered for 4 years, and all I got in return was a single, meaningless bill. Back then, in order to convince me to support him, he had sworn and promised that he would marry me as soon as he graduated. He had even tricked me into giving him my first time. Thinking about my past self, my nose stung, and tears flowed uncontrollably. How could I have been so foolish for a man? I deserved everything I had suffered. Wiping away my tears, I pulled a few books from the cabinet. In my previous life, I had gone to the city and bought him several college entrance exam prep books as a birthday gift. But there was no need to give him those gifts now. I washed my hands, sat down, and began flipping through the books. The content wasn't unfamiliar to me. In my last life, I had worried that once James graduated, the gap between us would grow too wide. After work, I would hide under my blanket, eating stale bread while studying these books. Whenever I came across something I didn't understand, I'd wait for a free moment during dishwashing breaks. I took the books to the store and asked the college students working part-time there. Each one of them was eager to help, patiently explaining whenever I had questions. Back then, I thought that when James and I got married in the future, he would realize that I wasn't just some clueless village girl. Surely, he would be pleasantly surprised. But now, I feel grateful to my past self. Even though I had to die once, I've paved the way for a better life this time. I borrowed a bicycle from my aunt next door and rode straight to the county high school. When I arrived, I saw my homeroom teacher, Mr. Carter, cleaning the classroom. He nearly jumped when he saw me. "Emily, didn't you drop out of school? Did you forget something?" In my previous life, I had quit school to support James's education. Before I dropped out, My grades had actually been better than his. However, during that time, many girls didn't continue studying past high school. Some supported their boyfriend's education, while others worked to help their families or younger siblings. Mr. Carter had been particularly regretful about my decision. Girls were already a minority in our class, and I had consistently been one of the top students. When he found out I was quitting school to support James, he sighed repeatedly but ultimately signed my withdrawal form without saying much. Hearing the surprise in his voice now, I smiled at him. Mr. Carter, is it too late to take back my withdrawal? The application had just been submitted the day before. If it hadn't been officially processed yet, I wouldn't even need to reverse it. I could simply continue attending classes. I was 2 years younger than James and currently a freshman in high school. If I re-enrolled now, I'd still have over 2 years before the college entrance exams. There was plenty of time to catch up. I looked at him expectantly, and he, in turn, seemed overjoyed. His face lit up, and with trembling hands, he pulled a crumpled withdrawal form from his pocket. I haven't submitted it yet. Are you sure about this? Once you decide, you can't change your mind again. I'm sure, I said, quickly taking the form and tearing it in half before tossing it into the trash. I had thought it through. The teacher's college had free tuition, wasn't too far from home, and was the best fit for me. In my previous life, James attended the architecture university across the street from the teacher's college. This time, I wanted to see how he would fare without me. With the re-enrollment sorted, I finally felt relieved. As I was leaving the school, I spotted James walking out of another building with a group of classmates, pushing his bicycle. It was too late to avoid him. He had already noticed me. Emily, what are you doing here? He looked surprised. Didn't you drop out? Panic rose in me. I hadn't planned on letting him know about my return to school. If he found out that I no longer intended to support him and was already planning ahead for my own future, wouldn't that ruin my second chance? In a flash, I came up with an excuse. I'm working nearby, I said. Working? His brows furrowed, and he gave me a once-over, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. Why aren't you staying in the village? What are you doing here? I forced a calm smile and blushed, pretending to be shy. The pay here is better. I thought it would also give me a chance to get used to city life. After all, when we get married, I'll have to live in the city eventually. It's good to adjust in advance. Right. Married. One of his classmates raised an eyebrow in surprise. A flicker of irritation crossed James's face. He quickly pulled me aside and lowered his voice. Don't say things like that in public. I'm preparing for college. If people find out I have a girlfriend, it won't reflect well on me. I nodded obediently, though internally I rolled my eyes. Admitting to having a fiancé was suddenly embarrassing for him. Back when he begged me to support his education, swearing he'd marry me as soon as he graduated, he hadn't seemed the least bit ashamed. Go back to the village, he said curtly. I gave him a faint smile, nodded again, and turned away. But inside, I was seething. This time, I wouldn't let him take advantage of me so easily. James handed me $1 for travel expenses and added coldly, consider this a loan. Don't come back again. After that day, I didn't see James anymore. With only a month left before the college entrance exams, he stayed at school every day, not even returning home on weekends. To avoid running into him, I used the excuse that my family was busy with farm work and needed more hands. I requested to study at home for the month, since I was only a freshman and still far from taking the exams, and my grades were already excellent. The teachers eventually agreed after I promised I wouldn't let my performance drop. They gave me a pile of practice books and made me promise to complete every single problem before letting me leave. During the day, I worked in the fields, and at night, I returned home to study. During this time, I ran into James's mother several times. She saw me working hard in the fields and assumed I was saving money for her son's tuition. Her face lit up with a delighted smile, and she even encouraged me to keep at it, saying, "You'll enjoy the good life later." Thanks to him, life passed in this way, uneventful and unremarkable. Soon enough, the college entrance exams were over. On the afternoon of the last day, James's mother and the rest of his family stood eagerly by the edge of the field, waiting with bated breath. Their faces were shiny with sweat, and the scorching sun had turned their skin greasy, but their excitement was palpable. Finally, James appeared in the distance, riding his large bicycle with a broad smile he couldn't contain. His voice rang out even before he got close. "I nailed it. I finished everything. I'm definitely going to pass this time." He brushed past me without even sparing a glance, heading straight for his mother and younger brother. Tommy, this time it's a done deal. Go kill a chicken. Tonight, we'll celebrate properly." His mother beamed with pride at his words, her face lighting up with joy. "I told you, didn't I? My son is so outstanding. Of course, he'll get into college." Tommy chimed in with a grin. "When you make it in the city, don't forget to bring us along." Even Lily, standing next to Tommy, gazed at James with admiration. A month passed, and while Lily showed no signs of pregnancy, she had already pocketed the bride price. Tommy pressed her to get married, but she always found excuses, saying her family was busy preparing for her brother's wedding, and that they could discuss their plans after things settled down. This made Tommy somewhat dissatisfied, but he couldn't say much. He simply made excuses to take Lily to the woods every so often, a fact that didn't escape the villagers. If it weren't for the fact that James was about to become a college student, the villagers' gossip would have drowned their family in ridicule. James's confident declarations about his future made his family a temporary sensation in the village. His mother paraded her pride everywhere, holding a bag of sunflower seeds as she bragged to anyone who would listen. "Is your kid taking the entrance exams? Look at my James. He's so accomplished. It's all about bringing honor to the family. And don't say your child isn't good at studying. How would you know if you don't push them? Studying is simple. My James has never given me a moment's trouble. He'll get into college effortlessly." She then added, her tone dripping with self-importance. "If your kid struggles, my James can tutor them. Only $3 an hour. It's cheaper than hiring someone from outside. And my James is a future college student." At the time, the average monthly wage in the city was only about $30. Charging $3 an hour was outrageous. First, the villagers tolerated her out of politeness, but as time went on, they grew annoyed. They could hear the condescension in her tone and began slamming their doors shut whenever she approached. When no one in the village would entertain her anymore, she visited a family with a mentally challenged son and said, "Your boy may be slow, but he's got a strong will. Who knows? Maybe with enough pushing, he'll become the village scholar. If he does well, don't forget to thank my James for inspiring him." That family, fed up, chased her off with a broom, realizing she'd run out of people to impress. She went to a neighboring village to boast about how even her slow James managed to get into college. The neighbor's son, who was in the same year as James and also a freshman in high school, had plenty of time before the college entrance exams. When James's mother boasted about his success, the neighbor lost patience and snapped back. "What nonsense are you spouting? My son is just as good as yours, if not better. Get lost." She shoved James's mother out and slammed the door shut. James's mother stood outside with her hands on her hips, fuming. "Humph. They're just jealous because my James is going to college. Just wait until he makes it big in the city. You'll all come begging me for favors." On the day the exam results were released, the news spread early in the morning. Someone dashed into the village, shivering from the cold but with excitement all over their face. They ran straight to James and announced, breathless, "You did it. James, you passed. The school called. Go pick up the results." Even though James had expected a good score, his hands trembled uncontrollably at the news. "All right, I'm going now," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. Not long after, he returned, sharing the news that he had scored 536 points, 36 points above the admission cutoff for universities. Getting into the architecture school he aimed for was practically guaranteed. Hearing this, James's mother immediately straightened her back and grinned so widely it looked like her face might split. "Didn't I tell you my son would make us proud? He's the glory of the family." She cast a disdainful glance at the envious faces around her. "That's why it's not about how many sons you have. It's about their quality. If they're just going to stay in the village farming, what's the point? Might as well raise cattle instead." The villagers, initially envious, rolled their eyes and dispersed after hearing her condescending remarks. James's mother didn't care. She strutted through the village every day, bragging about James's success and casually slipping in praise for her younger son, Tommy. She even mentioned how proud she was of Tommy for getting Lily pregnant before they were married, despite it being frowned upon. After all, having a son-in-law whose family included a college student brought prestige to their family. Lily had just discovered her pregnancy, and though it wasn't ideal, the family was thrilled. James's mother sent Tommy to town to buy some items and began planning a formal proposal next month. As for James, it seemed he had completely forgotten about me. When the exam results came out, James's school awarded him a substantial scholarship. He took the money, rented a private gaming console at an arcade, and spent most of his time in town, rarely coming back to the village. When he finally did return, it was only 10 days before the university semester started. He arrived on a cart loaded with bags and packages. Stepping off, he proudly announced, "I've got my acceptance letter here, along with all the good stuff I bought in the city." He showed off his gifts: cigarettes and liquor for his father, canned fruit and sugar for his mother, a wristwatch for Tommy, and a tape recorder with candies for Lily. He even brought back a sewing machine for his mother, carried on a rented tricycle. His mother was ecstatic, holding the watch aloft for everyone to see. "Look at how thoughtful my son is. He got into college and still remembered to buy us gifts. Just wait. Once he's successful in the city, he'll make sure our family prospers." When all the gifts were distributed, a neighbor who was familiar with my situation asked, "James, didn't you bring anything for Emily? She's been working hard in the fields, saving money for you. Couldn't you at least get her some hand cream or something?" James looked puzzled and replied dismissively, "Why would I buy anything for her? She's not part of my family. Why waste money on her?" After organizing his belongings and resting briefly, James hopped on the bike he bought for Tommy and pedaled over to my house. He arrived, panting, and called out, "Emily, look what I brought for you." He placed the bright red university acceptance letter in front of me. "What do you think? Impressive, right? I told you. Sticking with me means you'll enjoy the good life someday." I glanced at him coldly before turning away. "Why are you here?" James hesitated, slightly taken aback by my reaction. "I came to see you. School's starting soon, and I'll be leaving for the city. We won't get to see each other much anymore." I interrupted him sharply. "We've already broken up. You can leave now." He froze, grabbing my wrist. "Broken up? Since when? I didn't hear anything about that." I couldn't help but sneer. "We didn't break up? A month without seeing each other and it's an unspoken breakup. It's been almost 4 months now. We've been done for a while." "I was preparing for the college entrance exams," he exclaimed, his face flushing red. His voice grew louder as he continued, "And I did it all for you. Once I graduate, you can come with me to the city and live the good life." I scoffed, crossing my arms. "Live the good life? You didn't even bother to buy me anything when you came back. How can I expect you to give me anything in the future?" Annoyed, I stood up, signaling for him to leave. "Go now. You're a college student. Lingering here too long doesn't look good." "I wanted to buy you something," he stammered, quickly standing up and fumbling for an excuse. "But I was worried you wouldn't like it. How about this? When I get to the city, I'll buy you whatever you want. Anything you ask for." I rolled my eyes at him. "Are you leaving or not? If you don't, I'll call someone over." Realizing I wasn't joking, he panicked. "But what about my tuition? You have to give me the money." I yanked my hand out of his grip. "Go ask your mom." James had assumed that I would support his education without question, so he had already spent every penny of the scholarship money he received from school. He had even used the money to buy gifts for his family and show them off in the village. When he returned home dejectedly, his mother immediately sensed something was wrong. After some questioning, she found out that I had broken up with him. She was stunned. The family didn't have much money left. Most of it had already been spent on Lily's bride price, and the rest had been taken by Tommy to buy supplies for his upcoming proposal. With only 10 days left before school started, even if Tommy didn't buy the proposal gifts, it still wasn't enough to cover James's tuition. Panicked, His mother paced around the house before deciding to ask the village head for a loan. After all, having a college student in the village was a prestigious affair, and she thought the village head would feel obligated to help. Convinced it was a good idea, she didn't waste a minute and went straight to his house. The village head's grandson had also been accepted into a technical college this year, and they were hosting a celebratory banquet in their yard when she arrived. Breathless, James's mother put on her best smile and cautiously explained her request. She expected the village head to contribute something, but instead, he snorted coldly. "I told you to apply to a technical college back then, but you refused. Now that you've gotten into university, you suddenly want to borrow money." The village head had been holding a grudge against James ever since his grandson asked to borrow James's notes in high school and was refused. Adding to that, James's excellent exam results had always made the village head feel envious and resentful. When the college applications were being submitted, he had tried to persuade James to apply to the same technical college as his grandson, but James's mother had mocked him for it. Later, when the exam results came out and his grandson's score was far below James's, the village head felt humiliated. Now, seeing James's family come to ask for money, he felt he had finally regained some dignity. "You think technical colleges aren't good enough for your son?" the village head snapped, glaring at her. "If that's the case, why are you even here? Get out of my house before your prestigious college student ruins the atmosphere of my celebration." "No, wait. Please," James's mother begged, stomping her feet and shouting at the door. But the village head ignored her and slammed the door shut. With no other options, she shamelessly climbed over the wall into the yard. Since many influential villagers and close acquaintances of the village head were attending the banquet, she figured someone might be willing to lend her money. Standing awkwardly in the courtyard, she plastered a smile on her face and earnestly explained her situation, her tone as humble as possible. Despite her efforts, all she received were sneers and mocking remarks. "If you don't have money, why bother sending him to university? What's the point of studying if you can't afford it?" someone jeered, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. "How is it better for me to lend you money than to buy myself an old ox?" one villager scoffed, eyeing James's mother with disdain. "Your son is smart. All right. Spent all his scholarship money on gifts for your family and now turns to us for tuition. What? Your plan is to send a college student through school without spending a cent yourselves?" Another villager chimed in. "Exactly. Your family struts around like royalty, and we're supposed to eat scraps to fund James's education? If we lend you money, should we expect it back or not? If you pay us back, and James graduates, becomes a village official, and then holds it against us, what then? But if you don't pay it back, why should we give you money in the first place? Your son didn't learn for nothing. He's clearly good at accounting." Laughter erupted around them, making James's mother's face flush with embarrassment. Flustered, she stammered, "It's not like it's free. There will be interest." Someone in the crowd retorted, "And if James settles down in the city and moves your whole family there, how are we supposed to collect interest then?" Unable to endure the ridicule any longer, James's mother stormed off. Humiliated, on her way home, she encountered a group of people she often used to boast to. With no other options, she swallowed her pride and asked them for a loan, only to be met with jeers. Well, isn't this the family with a fancy bicycle, a tape recorder, and a sewing machine? Meanwhile, we can't even afford a sewing machine of our own. How can we possibly lend you money? Why don't you ask the people who can afford to pay for tutoring at $3 an hour? Surely, they won't mind covering a little tuition for you. Or better yet, have James tutor people around the clock. He could save up the tuition in 10 days if he really works hard." Her face turned red and white with fury and frustration. She wanted to lash out at them but held back, knowing she couldn't afford to alienate anyone further. Instead, she glared at them and spat out, "Fine. If you won't lend me money, plenty of others will. My son is a college student. People will be lining up to help us." Despite her bravado, she returned home empty-handed. She spent the entire night pacing the house, unable to sleep. The next morning, in a desperate move, she went to the neighboring village to ask the family with a mentally challenged son for help. But they had already heard the gossip. Before she even reached their doorstep, They drove her away with a broom. Get lost. The man of the house shouted. My son may be slow, but I'm saving every penny to make him the next village scholar. You've got a lot of nerve coming here to ask for money. Get out of here and don't come back. By the time James's mother returned home, she was seething. She vented her frustration by berating James for hours. Finally, her anger boiled over, and she declared, "This is all Emily's fault. She started this whole mess, so she's going to fix it. Who does she think she is? Deciding to break up just like that? I won't allow it. I'll get the money from her myself." That afternoon, when most of the villagers had returned from the fields, James's mother marched to my house. She pounded on the door, shouting loudly enough for the entire village to hear. "Emily, get out here right now," she bellowed, hammering the door. I stayed calm, continuing to read inside until a crowd had gathered around my door. Once there was no space left for anyone else, I leisurely got up and opened the door. The moment she saw me, she raised her voice even louder. "Emily, what is the meaning of this? You promised to support my son's education, and now you suddenly break up with him? Do you have someone else on the side?" I had anticipated this and was ready. Stepping out, I slapped her across the face without hesitation. "Someone else? Why don't you ask your son what he's been up to?" I said coldly. He disappeared for months without a word, came back with bags full of gifts, and not a single thing for me. I took that as a silent agreement to break up. But now that tuition is due. You remember me? What do you think I am? A fool? A piggy bank? She gaped at me, but I wasn't done. "Let me make this clear. I don't have any money for you. If he can afford to buy watches and sewing machines, then he can figure out how to pay his own tuition." Unfazed, she crossed her arms and shouted back, "Watches and sewing machines don't cost that much. When he makes it big, won't you still benefit from it?" I laughed bitterly. Benefit? From him? Let me tell you something. If I've learned one thing, it's that I'll never let anyone take advantage of me again. You should feel lucky to have a college student like my son. James's mother sneered. "Do you think he'd even look at you if you didn't put in any effort? What do you bring to the table for someone like him to want you?" I let out a cold laugh. "If anything, it's him who wants me, not the other way around." Her face twisted in anger. "Nonsense. My son doesn't want you. Have you looked in a mirror lately? A village girl like you has no place being with my son." I didn't even bother responding. "Perfect. We don't want each other. Goodbye," I said, slamming the door shut. From outside, I could hear her pounding on the door, screaming, "Emily, open this door right now. How dare you go back on your word?" As her shouting continued, a neighbor walking by stopped and loudly interjected, "Your son is the one who's done wrong, and you have the nerve to come here yelling at Emily." James's mother froze. The woman snorted, full of disdain. "My nephew saw James in the red light district when he was in town. Apparently, he didn't leave until the next morning, with dark circles under his eyes. Looks like he had quite the night." Another villager chimed in. "Oh, that's why. I saw a young man walking out of there when I went to buy clothes in town. I thought he looked familiar. And now I realize it was James." The two of them went back and forth, painting a vivid picture of James's escapades. Their words quickly stirred a buzz among the gathered villagers. A fresh high school graduate already acting like this? What's he going to be like in a few years? One murmured. And here I thought he was a college student. Turns out he's just a disgrace hiding behind a degree. No wonder Tommy got that girl pregnant. This whole family is rotten. The crowd exchanged glances, their disdain clear. James's mother turned pale, her face a mix of embarrassment and fury. "Shut up. All of you. Shut up," she shouted, pushing her way out of the group before fleeing in humiliation. As the commotion outside quieted down, I opened my door, walked out, and handed two $2 bills to the two women who had spoken up. "Thank you, aunties," I said politely. One of them waved it off with a smile. "No need to thank us. We've had enough of that family. Besides, remember how they spread those false rumors about you back then? This is just karma." "Exactly," the other added, nudging her friend. "James always pretends to be honest, but deep down, he's full of schemes. Who knows what he's really been up to?" They both laughed and promised to help again if needed before leaving. Meanwhile, James's mother stormed back home to find him still lying in bed. Her anger boiled over, and she kicked him hard. "All you do is sleep. You've ruined my reputation completely." Startled awake, James sat up and rubbed his eyes. "What happened? Did you talk to Emily? What did she say?" "What did she say?" his mother snapped. "What about the nonsense you've been up to in town? Don't you have any shame?" Her voice was full of disgust, but she waved a hand dismissively. "Forget it. I won't even bring it up. The point is, I didn't get the tuition money." Hearing this, James shot up in panic. "What? You didn't get the money? What am I supposed to do now? What do you think? I told her about the breakup. Honestly, if you brought her a small gift or spent a little money to appease her when you came back, things wouldn't have gotten this bad." James frowned deeply, his expression darkening. "She's changed. Fine. I'll go talk to her myself." That evening, just as the sun was setting, James came to my house. Not wanting to draw attention, he avoided knocking on the door and instead picked up a handful of pebbles, throwing them at my window. After 10 or so throws, I finally opened the window. His face, drenched in sweat, immediately appeared. "Emily, I didn't do anything to you. What's going on? Why are you treating me like this?" I smiled at him and said calmly, "Oh, is that what you think? That I'm mad because you didn't bring me a gift?" Relieved, he nodded eagerly. "Yes, that must be it, right? I'll pay your tuition first, and once I get to the city, I'll buy you whatever you want. How about that?" I immediately shot him down. "No, since when do gifts come on credit? Besides, I need something now." He hesitated, his expression flickering with panic. "But I don't have any money on me right now." He looked down and muttered, "How about this? My family still has some sugar left. I'll bring it over for you." I raised my voice deliberately, cutting him off. "You want to give me leftover sugar? Do you take me for a beggar?" "James." I moved to shut the window. "Just leave already. We're done. There's no future for us." "Wait. Please don't." He quickly blocked the window with his arm, his voice desperate. "Tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to give it to you." Resting my chin in my hand, I pretended to think deeply for a moment. Then, in an exaggeratedly casual tone, I said, "All right, since we've been together for so many years, I'll keep it simple. Give me your family's bicycle, sewing machine, radio, and Tommy's watch. But don't worry, I don't need to keep them. Just leave them with me as collateral. If you do that, I'll pay your tuition. Otherwise, why should I give you money without any guarantee?" His face turned pale as he stammered, "But those things are for Tommy's wedding. Lily's family demanded the 3 rounds and 1 sound. How can I take the items they just received and give them to you? How would I explain that to Lily?" "Oh, you care about Lily that much, don't you?" I sneered, unable to hold back my sarcasm. "You're better suited for her anyway." Annoyed, I pushed his arm off the window frame and slammed the window shut. "Get lost. James, if you don't leave now, I'll call someone over to deal with you. Emily, let's talk for a minute." He pounded on the window, shouting loudly, "All right, fine. Wait here. I'll go get the things for you." As soon as he left, I sent word to Lily's family through an aunt, telling them that James planned to take the wedding items, bought for Tommy, to give to me instead. The moment Lily heard this, she was furious. That night, she contacted Tommy and demanded he move the sewing machine, bicycle, and other valuable items to her parents' house immediately. Tommy, who always did whatever Lily said, especially since she was pregnant, didn't hesitate. The thought of James giving those things to me enraged him. Without a second thought, he and Lily's brother transported everything to Lily's family home that very night. The next day, when James approached Tommy to discuss taking the items, he discovered they were all gone. With only 5 days left before the school term started, James panicked. He grabbed Tommy by the collar, his face red with anger. "Where are the things? I promised Emily I'd bring them to her today so she'd pay my tuition." "Sorry, brother." Tommy, stronger from years of farm work, easily shoved James back a step. "I promised Lily those items were for our wedding. I can't go back on my word now." James was fuming, his mind racing as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. He tried to compose himself, taking a deep breath before saying in a gentler tone, "Tommy, listen to me. Let me borrow the things for now. I'll repay you double once I've made it big." But Tommy shook his head firmly. "I understand, but Lily's pregnancy can't wait. How about you retake the exams next year?" Tommy, who had never gone to school, didn't understand how difficult the college entrance exams were. James grew even more frantic, realizing he couldn't reason with Tommy. In desperation, he ran to find his mother, hoping she could convince Lily to change her mind. But Lily had already made it clear. "Everything in your house will eventually be mine. So why should I let you give it to Emily? You gave those things to an outsider." James shouted, pacing angrily. "I didn't even take them. I was just holding them for safekeeping." His mother had no response to that, so she cautiously suggested, "Why don't we just forget about school this year? Your sister-in-law is already pregnant. If we take those things back now, it'll cause a huge fight with Tommy and her." "You don't know a damn thing," James snapped, losing all pretense of being calm and educated. With only 4.5 days left before the start of school, he was sweating profusely, as if his entire future was going up in flames. Desperate, James came back to my house. "Emily, can I pay you back later? I'll give you interest, or even write an IOU. Once I get to college, I'll work part-time every month and pay you back. Double even. Please, just lend me the tuition." I shrugged, crossing my arms. "You have nothing to offer me now. What do you expect me to do? Be a charity case? I can barely make ends meet myself. Why would I fund your education?" James's face twisted with anger, and he finally dropped all pretense of politeness. He started pounding on my window, shouting and screaming for me to come out. The noise was so loud that a neighbor, thinking he was about to harass me, ran to the fields to fetch some young men. Together, they dragged him off my property. Furious and humiliated, James stormed back to his mother's house. "Get me Tommy's bride price," he demanded. "I'll use it to pay my tuition and repay it to Lily later. Just tell her it's a loan." His mother shook her head firmly. "Lily's pregnant with Tommy's child. I had someone check. She's definitely expecting. How can we ask for the bride price back now? It would be a disaster. She's already carrying his kid. Of course, she'll marry into the family," James shouted, his temper flaring. "Just get the money for me. Once I've made it in the city, I won't forget everything she's done for us." As luck would have it, Lily overheard this entire conversation. She stormed in, clutching her stomach, and glared at James and his mother. "If you so much as mention returning the bride price, I'll abort this baby," she said coldly. "This is your family's first grandchild. If you want to be known as the family that killed its future, then go ahead. You decide what's more important." Her words left James's mother in a panic. She grabbed James by the sleeve and begged quietly, "Let it go. Please. It's your fault for spending all the scholarship money. If you'd saved some, we wouldn't be in this mess." James's face turned red with rage. His fists clenched. "I did everything for you," he shouted at Lily, his anger spilling over. "I used my scholarship money to buy things for your wedding. Now I can't go to college. All because of you. And what about the future? When I make it big in the city, won't you benefit from it?" Lily looked at him coldly. "Who knows about the future? Right now, the bride price is in my hands, and I'm not giving it back. End of story." James turned to his mother for support, but she had clearly taken Lily's side. To her, the prospect of a first grandson far outweighed James's university acceptance letter. He stared at the two of them, his expression darkening as frustration boiled inside him. "Short-sighted fools," he muttered under his breath. With only 3 days left before school started, James should have been on a train headed to university by now. Instead, he paced back and forth in the courtyard, his chest heaving with anger and despair. His thoughts churned as he tried to come up with a solution, but no matter how he spun it, there was no clear way out. He started going door to door, knocking and bowing his head to beg for tuition money. However, because his family had flaunted their wealth too much in the past and were not well liked in the village, most people turned him away. The rumors about him frequenting the red light district in the city didn't help either. Many villagers mocked him, some sneering openly, while others simply claimed they were struggling themselves and shut their doors in his face. Only a few families, feeling some pity, gave him symbolic amounts, just enough to show some sympathy. After a whole morning of begging, James's forehead was bruised and bleeding, but all he managed to collect was enough for travel expenses, still far from what he needed for tuition. Exhausted, he sat on the ground, defeated, his spirit completely crushed. Word travels fast in a village, and soon an aunt came to inform me about James's next plan. He's scheming to trick you into going to the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house, she whispered. Once you're there, he plans to trap you and force you into marrying him. That way, whether you agree to pay for his tuition or not, you'll have no choice but to go along with it. I smiled calmly, thanked her, and handed her $2 as a token of appreciation. The aunt left, and not long after, James's mother showed up in my yard. Her face unusually pleasant, her voice sweet as honey. She grabbed my hand warmly. Emily, about you and James. He knows he made a mistake. All right? He handled things poorly. But tomorrow he's heading off to university. And who knows when he'll be back again. He really wants to see you before he leaves. He's waiting for you at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. Can't you at least meet him for old time's sake? I stopped cracking sunflower seeds and glanced at her lazily. So, he managed to gather enough tuition money. Yes, he did. He managed to pull it all together yesterday, she said, her enthusiasm bubbling over as she shoved a can of orange-flavored soda into my hands. Here, James told me to bring this for you. It's from the city. Really good stuff. Take it with you and enjoy it on the way. She practically ran off after completing her task, as if relieved to have checked it off her list. I weighed the can in my hand. It was indeed a rare treat, something I might have once foolishly taken as a token of his affection, but not anymore. As I stepped outside, I spotted Lily passing by my house, smirking. I handed her the soda. Here, for you. A gift from James. Her face twisted in confusion as she eyed me suspiciously. Why would he give me this? What do you mean? I grinned, clearly enjoying her discomfort. James wants to get back together with me. He even brought me a bunch of these sodas from the city. I figured you probably haven't had anything this nice before, so I'm giving you one to try. Lily's expression darkened as I leaned closer, lowering my voice just enough to sting. I bet Tommy never gave you anything this fancy. Huh? She scoffed, snatched the can from my hand, and popped it open. Taking 2 big gulps, she spat back. You sly fox. I don't know what tricks you pulled to get James wrapped around your finger, but let me tell you this. If you think you're going to marry him, don't forget that half of what he earns will still go to Tommy and me. Really? I raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. James doesn't seem to think so. He told me all his money is mine. Oh, and he mentioned that not only was his high school scholarship paid for, but his university tuition is free, too. You know. He said he only asked you all for money to use as my dowry. What? Lily's face flushed with anger. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice conspiratorially. Oh, and one more thing. The stuff he bought you with his scholarship? That barely cost him anything. The rest? He gave it all to me yesterday. Don't believe me? See for yourself. He's waiting for me right now at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. Go check if you don't believe me. Lily, who was always quick to anger, bit the bait immediately. Her face twisted with fury as she growled. Wait here. I'm going to see for myself. If what you're saying is true, I'll make him pay for giving our money to an outsider. She stormed off, soda can in hand, but not before slamming it into the ground, sending it skittering into the ditch. I contacted the village aunt and asked her to gather some people in half an hour to catch someone at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. I didn't know what James might have put in that orange soda, but it was likely one of the usual tricks. The old storage room was dark and enclosed, with only a sliver of light coming in through a small corner window. Faces were nearly impossible to make out, and since Lily and I had similar builds, even if James realized it wasn't me, just being caught alone with his sister-in-law would be enough to ruin him. Meanwhile, I stayed comfortably in my room, snacking on sunflower seeds and listening carefully for any commotion. Half an hour passed, and the village seemed quiet. Without any unusual activity, I patiently waited another 20 minutes before I saw a group of about a dozen people hurrying past my house. A while later, I noticed several young men carrying a stretcher toward the van at the village entrance. Following them was James's mother, wailing hysterically, "You beast! That's your sister-in-law. How could you do this?" Her cries echoed, mixed with James's screams and Tommy's enraged shouts as he slammed things around. Curious, I leaned out to ask the aunt who had come over. She gave me a knowing look, her expression laced with amusement. Glancing around to make sure no one else was nearby, she covered her mouth and whispered with a chuckle, "What a mess. That college boy from the James family assaulted his sister-in-law. She's pregnant. And now she's bleeding badly." I covered my mouth in feigned shock. "What? That's insane. Was it consensual or forced?" "It looked forced," the aunt said, clicking her tongue in disapproval. "When we got there, the poor girl was unconscious. James seemed totally oblivious, still grinning like a fool. Who knows if she passed out from the assault or sheer fright." Not long after, the police arrived and took James into custody on the spot. His mother collapsed to the ground, wailing, "Who called the cops? This is a family matter. What a disaster." That evening, James's mother barged into my house, screaming at the top of her lungs, "You wretched girl! Get out here." I calmly opened the door. The recent events had turned the village into a buzzing hive of gossip, with small groups gathering everywhere to discuss the scandal. Her face was twisted with rage, and she shrieked, "You gave that orange soda to Lily. She's pregnant. And you poisoned her. How could you be so cruel?" She lunged at me, grabbing my neck with both hands in a desperate grip. I pushed her off lightly, and she stumbled to the ground. Smiling, I said, "Oh, so you admit there was something in the soda? Was it your doing? Or was it James's?" Her eyes widened in horror. "You're talking nonsense. I didn't put anything in the drink." "Then it must have been James," I said, holding up the soda can. "I picked it up after you left. If there's anything in it, the police can easily find out." "No, don't let them test it," she screamed, lunging at me again. But this time, I stepped aside, revealing the police officers standing behind me. I handed the soda can to the officers and said firmly, "Officers, I'd like to report a crime. My ex-boyfriend, James, attempted to drug and harm me." James's mother froze. Her face drained of color. She stumbled back 3 steps, stammering, "It wasn't my son. He's a college student. You can't arrest him. It was me. I did it. If someone has to be arrested, take me." At the officer's command, she was taken away, still sobbing and shouting incoherently. The rest of the story, I heard from the village head. James confessed to everything during his interrogation. The soda had indeed been spiked with a sedative. Lily, who had drunk the entire can, passed out shortly after entering the storage room. James, unable to see clearly in the dim light, mistook her for me and assaulted her. Lily, who was less than 3 months pregnant, suffered severe complications from the assault. This time, Lily experienced massive bleeding. The small-town clinic couldn't handle such a critical condition, and the delay in transporting her to the hospital only worsened the situation. By the time she arrived, the baby was already gone. Lily barely survived, but the damage left her unlikely to have children in the future. The incident caused an irreparable rift between James and Tommy. They openly turned against each other, their relationship completely shattered. However, James refused to admit that he had spiked the drink. He claimed his mother had only passed the message to me but wasn't involved in the drugging itself. In the end, to reduce her son's sentence, James's mother took full responsibility for adding the sedative. James was sentenced to 3 years in prison for assaulting Lily, while his mother received a 2-year sentence for spiking the drink. With the verdict, James's dream of being a college student was completely destroyed. Tommy and Lily eventually got married, but the marriage was far from happy. Tommy couldn't move past what had happened between Lily and his brother, and resented the fact that Lily could no longer have children. The two of them fought constantly. Loud, vicious arguments that often ended with the sound of pots and dishes breaking, their quarrels audible from far away. Peace was a rare visitor in their household. Meanwhile, my semester grades came out. I ranked first in my class and fifth in the entire grade. With 2 more years of hard work, getting into a top university wasn't out of reach. In my previous life, I had staked everything on James. I gave him everything I had, supporting him unconditionally, believing that when he became successful, I would share in his glory. But in the end, he became a traitor like Chan Shimmy, and I met a tragic death. This time around, I finally understood relying on others is futile. Mountains can crumble, and trees can fall. Trusting anyone else is no match for relying on myself. I had endured the worst in my previous life. Whatever hardships lay ahead, I would face them head on. Nothing could be more difficult than what I had already survived. When Matthew Carter turned 75, he suddenly decided he wanted to move out and live with his white moonlight. I refused, leaning heavily on his cane. His back hunched severely. He trembled as he said, "You've been so obedient for 70 years. Don't start acting out now. After so many years of marriage, it would be a shame to let everything fall apart. It's not worth it." My blood froze, and my heart grew cold. Later, I unexpectedly found myself back in the 1990s. In this lifetime, I only wished to meet him briefly. Nothing more. Pulling my gaze away, I chuckled lightly, treasuring this rare moment of clarity. I quickly made a decision. I needed to stay away from Matthew Carter. I didn't want to follow him to the multinational company, tirelessly cleaning up his messes. I didn't want to remain a meek, obedient housekeeper, only to be discarded when he no longer needed me. As I turned, I bumped into someone, a woman in an ethereal white dress, stunningly beautiful. It was Matthew's female buddy, Emily Young. "Sophia Moore. Studying welding? What are you doing here?" Emily tilted her head with a malicious smile. "A woman learning welding? What's the thought process there? Competing with construction workers for jobs? Don't you feel ashamed?" I didn't bother explaining that MIT's welding courses had broader applications. Instead, I wondered why Emily, with whom I barely interacted, harbored such relentless hostility toward me from the start. I hadn't understood it before, but having lived through it once, I now knew. Emily was the teapot girl everyone would later gossip about. She looked down on me yet couldn't stop Matthew, whom she admired, from choosing me as his girlfriend, but I didn't want to dwell on it. "You're looking for Matthew? He's already completed his withdrawal paperwork. If you head to his dorm now, you might catch him." Her expression shifted. "Why are you being so snide? So what if I'm here to see Matthew? Is he your boyfriend?" "I'm his buddy. Who says men and women can't have platonic friendships? If I want to see him, I will. If you're unhappy, take it up with him. See if he'd stop talking to me because of you." Her attitude was infuriating, so I slapped her without hesitation. "We call women like you teapot girls, or worse, the kind who knowingly inserts themselves into others' relationships. As someone still dating Matthew, I have every right to put you in your place." Emily clutched her face, her expression twisted with anger, her eyes radiating venom. She was about to lunge at me, but in the next moment, tears welled up, and she suddenly looked pitiful. "Why would you treat me like this? Can't men and women just be friends? Why would you accuse me of these ridiculous things? Teapots? Love triangles? Is it because you think being from MIT makes you superior? That you can insult me? A student from the conservatory? Our conservatory is also a top-tier institution. Why should I tolerate your condescending remarks?" Her eyes brimmed with tears, defiant yet unwilling to back down. "You have such talent. You should pursue acting instead." I didn't need to turn around to know that Matthew Carter had come back. He grabbed my arm with a force so strong it almost hurt, pulling me to the side. "If I catch you bullying Emily again, just try me." Seeing Matthew again, not yet old and gray, caught me off guard. I hadn't adjusted to this version of him. It felt as if the pain from my previous life, when I collapsed from a heart attack, still lingered. "So, as long as you don't get caught, it's fine, right?" I asked, just like how Emily treated me. Matthew's grip loosened slightly, but his voice carried his usual reprimand. "You bullied her in private too? How many horrible things have you done behind my back? Emily rarely tells me anything. She's just too kind. Sophia, you've truly let me down." I found it laughable. In my past life, during those 70 years, The phrase I heard most from him was, "You've truly let me down." Trying not to disappoint him turned me into someone obedient and submissive, almost like a puppet on strings. If it hadn't been for his decision in his later years to move in with his white moonlight, trampling on my dignity, or for his cold indifference when I collapsed from chest pain, I might never have woken up. But now, I had awakened. It was time to live differently. "So, are you asking if I did or didn't?" I said. "If I did, it's slander by the lake. But either way, it doesn't matter anymore. Let me save you the trouble and finish what you're about to say. Let's break up." For a moment, Matthew seemed flustered. He hadn't expected me, always so compliant, to suddenly rebel. "What nonsense are you talking about? This isn't like when you chased me for 4 years, clinging desperately. I'm telling you this once. I won't beg you to stay. Stop being so dramatic." The same tired rhetoric I'd heard countless times over the years made me smile faintly. This meant we were officially done, didn't it? I nodded and took a step back. He kicked a trash can in anger, his voice rising. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you still expecting me to help with your application to the multinational company? Without me, how is someone who studies welding supposed to get in?" I looked at him calmly and said, "No need to trouble yourself." Matthew's face flushed red with rage. "Don't come crying to me later." He kicked the trash can again, grabbed Emily's hand, and stormed off. I turned around without a moment's hesitation and walked toward the principal's office. Regret? That was something I'd never feel. My relationship with Matthew had always been a mismatch. He majored in computer science, while I studied welding. Everyone had questioned why I'd chosen such an unconventional major when more promising fields were available, especially for a woman. "What's a proper major for a girl?" they'd ask, pointing to people like Emily. "Music is perfect. Singing on stage. Dazzling like a star. In my next life," I thought, "I'd love to live as carefree as Emily. But in this one, my father had insisted I study materials science. Graduate from MIT, he'd say, and serve the country. It's your duty as my daughter." Ridiculous logic. My roommate once sighed wistfully at graduation, resting her chin on her hand. "You're so lucky. I heard you're going to a multinational company with Matthew. I wish I could, but the school won't let me go. My dad would break my legs if I tried." I shook my head at the time. There's nothing great about working for a multinational company. Now, standing in the principal's office with the application form in hand, I knew my answer. In my previous life, I had come here to politely decline his offer to stay and teach. This time, I'd accept. The principal walked out and saw me holding the form. He raised an eyebrow. "Here to turn me down again, are you? Your skills are exceptional. Do you really need to waste them at a multinational company? Sure, the benefits and perks are great, but you and your boyfriend don't both need to go. Even if just one of you works there, you can support a household. Why must both of you fight so hard to get in?" The principal had brought up the idea of me staying at the university several times and had naturally looked into my background. He knew I was dating Matthew Carter, though relationships at this stage in life often couldn't withstand much change. People assumed that what began now would last forever. I shook my head. "It's not like that, Principal. Let's go inside to talk." After finalizing my decision to stay at the university, I left the administrative building. Around me, students were carrying their luggage and saying their goodbyes, each heading to a new chapter of their lives. After brief farewells, they dispersed to their respective destinations. When I returned to my dorm, my roommate had already packed everything and was waiting to say goodbye to me. "I'm heading straight to the Northwest," she said. "I won't even have a chance to see my dad before I leave. I wonder if he'll regret forcing me to attend this school." Her tone was wistful. We hugged tightly, knowing this might truly be our last goodbye. Unlike others, who were simply going their separate ways, we were unlikely to meet again. I walked her out of the dorm building, and when I returned, I encountered Matthew Carter hiding in the shadows of the hallway. He spotted me quickly, and the hatred in his eyes was unmistakable. The veins on his temple bulged as he glared at me. "Sophia Moore," he said through gritted teeth. "You're something else. If you stay, we're done." I froze for a moment. Perhaps I hadn't been clear before. But no matter. I could always say it again. "This has nothing to do with you." I replied. He narrowed his eyes, his voice dripping with venom. You're disgusting. That was fast. Changing your heart like that. Fine. Ruin yourself however you want. From now on, we're walking separate paths. Don't ever cross mine again. With that, he stormed past me, his strides quick and furious. Under the shade of the trees, Emily Young emerged and caught up with him, slipping her arm around his, her cheek pressed close to his ear. And Matthew didn't push her away. She turned her head to look back at me, her expression triumphant, like a butterfly dancing in the breeze. But as the season changed, butterflies wouldn't last long into autumn. Emily and Matthew had first met at a school mixer. Emily was one of the main performers, slated for a solo performance. Before her turn, she waited in an empty hallway, headphones on, listening to her MP3 player. Matthew, passing by, noticed her. Emily, seeing him, removed one earbud and smiled. This is an MP3 player, she said proudly. A new model from Korea. My dad spent a fortune on it. There aren't many like this in the country. Super expensive. Have you seen one before? What do you use to listen to music? Don't tell me it's an old-fashioned Walkman. Oh, do you have a cell phone? You look decent enough. Let's exchange numbers. What brand is your phone? Is it a Nokia? Did you know Nokia has Snake? Or do you play games on a console? The newest Nokia models even have built-in games. Did you upgrade your phone? If you don't know how to use it, I can teach you. She bombarded him with questions. But Matthew couldn't answer any of them. His phone still had an antenna. He didn't have a Walkman, only a second-hand CD player passed down through several owners, which he used to study English. He didn't own a gaming console, nor did he have time for games. He was so poor that if he ever let his guard down, he wouldn't know where his next meal would come from. Yet, he never felt offended by Emily Young. To Matthew Carter, Emily was like someone from another world, or rather, another class entirely, a class he aspired to reach. Sometimes, Matthew would lose himself in thought. When I called him back to reality, he'd say, Sophia, maybe you could try wearing dresses, putting on makeup, and using a few solid, polished accessories. It makes people unable to take their eyes off you. Back then, I was naive and clueless. I stupidly replied, wouldn't that take a lot of money and effort? I didn't notice how the light in Matthew's eyes, briefly focused on me, dimmed in an instant. Perhaps he realized at that moment that he didn't need someone like him by his side, but he didn't have the courage to say it outright. So he begrudgingly stayed with me for a lifetime. As I packed my belongings and prepared to leave the campus, I unexpectedly ran into Emily Young. She was leaning against the doorway, waiting for me. Aren't you curious about what Matthew and I talked about? She asked. You're in my way. I replied honestly. Her face darkened. What's with your high and mighty attitude? You think staying on as a teacher with your iron rice bowl makes you untouchable? That no one is worthy of speaking to you? Let me tell you something. I've already been hired by a TV station. Soon, I'll be a professional actress. Not only will I be singing, but I'll also be participating in all kinds of variety shows. Do you even know how popular variety shows are these days? People who stand out on them become household names. Teachers like you will be poor nobodies for life. Never famous. She smirked. Ever heard of shows like Happy Camp or Our Song? People like you couldn't even dream of appearing on those, let alone any well-known variety show. Actually, forget those. Someone like you won't even get a single second of airtime on television. Wow, I said, smiling faintly. You're really amazing. Her expression grew darker. You don't believe me, do you? I'm telling you. Someday, whenever you turn on the TV, you'll see me. And when that happens, don't smash your TV out of jealousy. Or better yet, gouge your eyes out. I can't wait to see you completely overshadowed by me. I tilted my head, crossing my arms. So, your ultimate life goal is to surpass me. Without warning, she raised her hand to slap me. What gives you the confidence to act so smug? Are you trying to provoke me? Fine. I'll give you what you deserve. I dodged her, and since the stairs were right behind her, she lost her balance and fell, tumbling all the way down. I sighed. Some people dedicate their lives to quiet, uncelebrated at work. Others make so much noise they leave everyone's ears ringing. Fame can come in many forms, being universally admired or being infamous. Let's see which one you'll become. Emily's fall sent her straight to the hospital. She refused to disclose the extent of her injuries to anyone. After being discharged, she was often seen clutching her lower abdomen and complaining of persistent pain. Due to the sudden turn of events, her planned variety show appearances were cancelled, forcing her to take an entire summer off from work. Matthew Carter's reaction to all this was even more dramatic. When he confronted me, his fury was uncontainable. Sophia Moore, you've crossed the line. How could you be so cruel to Emily? Why did you have to ruin her? I know you've always been jealous of her. No girl isn't jealous of her. But to stoop so low as to harm her and make yourself a criminal. What's wrong with you? He grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. You're coming with me to the police station. Matthew Carter said coldly. You have to pay for what you did. You pushed her and caused her to suffer such severe consequences. You deserve to be ruined too. You shouldn't be a teacher. The new school semester had started, and I was now a professor for incoming freshmen in the welding program. My colleagues in the office began to murmur. One of them bluntly saying, Emily Young said you pushed her. You know defamation can be criminally prosecuted, right? Even though surveillance wasn't widespread back then. Our school had cameras installed in every corner due to its unique requirements. Are you really that ignorant? Matthew's hand dropped to his side. Stunned, I continued. People shouldn't just hold others to high standards. Sometimes, they need to hold themselves accountable too. For example, you should have realized by now that surveillance cameras, which are easily visible if you just look up, would disprove these lies. Matthew didn't meet my gaze. Instead, he started ranting, his voice defensive and bitter. You're starting to look down on me too, aren't you? I bury myself in studying and work every day, struggling to make ends meet. What's wrong with that? I don't even have time to look up at the sky. But at least I'm more noble than you. I haven't sold my body to sleep with some old man 40 years my senior. So, this was what Emily had told him, and he believed every word of it. I lowered my voice. Matthew Carter, don't discuss me any further. Otherwise, I'll make sure you suffer the consequences you deserve. But Matthew dismissed my warning. He was too self-assured, convinced I wouldn't hurt him, that I couldn't drive him away no matter what. In front of everyone, he demanded, then why were you allowed to stay at the university? You're just a woman. How did you manage to achieve something that even so many men couldn't? Why you? It was true that there weren't many female professors in our office, nor were there many women in the welding program as a whole. But did that prove anything? I kept my tone calm, addressing not just him but anyone else who might be ready to judge me. My grades and professional skills ranked first in my field. You're welcome to check. Matthew didn't hesitate. That's just a coincidence. Grades are influenced by countless unstable factors. They don't mean anything. I stood there silently, trying to recall why I had ever been with him in the first place. The memories from 74 years ago were blurry, faded with time, and honestly, they probably weren't worth remembering. Deciding not to waste any more energy on him, I said quietly, "Get out." He stared at me, his eyes flickering with unspoken thoughts. After a moment, he mouthed the word bitch. Suddenly, it hit me. The beginning of our relationship had been nothing but a farce. It started at a party, hosted by a wealthy heir who had invited the entire school. He demanded I accompany him, and when I refused, he and his friends started hurling insults at me, calling me a whore and escort. Their crude words echoed loudly in the room, their laughter piercing as I stood in the center, my face burning with shame. It was Matthew who stepped in to help, to defuse the situation. He declared, "She's my girlfriend." The others, of course, didn't believe him. The heir sneered, "You two are dating? Prove it. Show us here and now. If you're lying, then we'll be keeping the girl tonight for a little fun." Cornered, Matthew didn't touch me. Instead, he grabbed a wine bottle from the table and smashed it against his own head with all his strength. Blood, or perhaps wine, dripped down his face as he glared at them. "You all need to learn some respect. And if you can't, I'll teach you with the broken glass in my hand." The bottle he smashed was a 1998 vintage Lafite, worth a small fortune. He was humiliated by the heir afterward and spent a long time paying off the debt. Whenever I tried to give him money to help, he'd stubbornly refuse, saying, "I broke the bottle. It's my responsibility to pay for it. You were never wrong from the start." Back then, I was genuinely moved, so much so that I lost all sense of reason. Only now do I realize that when Matthew Carter spoke about respect, he meant respect for people like him, not for women. The respect he sought was the kind shown to equals, to his own kind. That's why, when Matthew described me later, he unconsciously used the same derogatory terms the wealthy heir had used. Now, here he was, using those same vile words to demean a woman. Matthew was someone with an overbearing, almost pathological sense of pride. He would do anything to escape his inferior status. This was clear when he reappeared in my life during the implementation of new regulations for part-time graduate programs. He showed up pretending everything was fine, asking me for some insider information. He even bought me the latest Nokia phone with built-in games, a model worth 9,000 yuan, equivalent to my savings for an entire quarter. "How much do you earn as a teacher?" he asked, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Do you even save 300 yuan a month? If I get into the part-time graduate program, I'll be earning more than 10 times your salary while finishing my degree. Once I graduate, my income will double again. And you? Even if your salary doubles or triples, it'll still just be a few hundred yuan. Sophia, I'm a great catch, aren't I? There's no need to look down on me. You should be admiring me. Let's get back together." The speed at which I came to understand the real Matthew Carter was astonishing. He didn't hesitate to expose his deepest flaws right in front of me, as if they didn't matter at all. Perhaps, to him, they truly didn't. That's why he could act so brazenly. I glanced at the phone he had given me. "So, what is this supposed to be? A gift or a bribe?" Matthew's face hardened, his expression a mix of disbelief and frustration. "What do you mean? I gave you a gift, and now you're calling it bribery?" I shrugged. "Well, you have to admit, there's a difference between us now. I'm a teacher, and you're a prospective student, or not even that. Since this is the first year of the part-time graduate program, no one knows the admission rates, the selection criteria, the course structure, or whether it'll interfere with your job at the multinational company. And who's to say you'll even get in? It's a bit premature to draw lines between us. But as things stand, I'm a teacher and you're not, so you should take your phone back. Or I might report you for attempted bribery." Matthew's hands clenched into fists before he slowly released them. Do we really need to be this hostile toward each other? We were together for 4 years. I'll admit, what I said last time was out of line, but I've thought about it since. Our principal is already 70 years old. If not for the lack of personnel, he wouldn't still be in his position. He's been grooming his deputy to take over, and he barely handles any actual responsibilities anymore. If you really wanted to achieve something, wouldn't it make more sense to get involved with his deputy? Besides, without that kind of relationship, how could someone like you, 50 years younger than the principal, ever have anything inappropriate going on with him? I was so disgusted by his words that I spoke without thinking. What's 50 years? I've shared a bed with someone 70 years older than me. Though, to be fair, thinking about it now does make me sick. Matthew's eyebrows twitched, clearly unsettled by my absurd statement. He didn't believe me, but whether something was absurd or not was entirely a matter of perspective. The rumors about me and the principal were laughable to me. Still, I couldn't help but wonder what Matthew would think if he found out that Emily Young had fabricated the lies about me. So, I asked him. He stared at me for a long time before finally saying, "Emily never said anything like that about you. He just wanted to give you a friendly reminder." Matthew said, "To warn you to be careful and avoid unnecessary risks." When did you start assuming the worst about people? Why can't you be like you were before? I responded coldly. Then why didn't he come to tell me himself? Isn't that obvious? I have a better relationship with him than you do. To him, you're practically a stranger. Of course, he'd come to me first if something came up. I said nothing more. There was no point in continuing this conversation. You don't need to waste your energy on me, I finally said. I've already decided not to stay on as a teacher. I pointed toward the office door. Please leave, even though it's after hours. I hope you'll follow basic etiquette next time. Like knocking. Though it'd be best if there's no next time. Matthew opened his mouth to say something, but I put my earbuds in and closed my eyes. The office, which had briefly fallen silent, was soon interrupted again as the door opened without warning. Emily Young appeared, holding a camera in her hand. Well, she said, glancing around. Just Miss Moore here all by herself? Staying late to impress the higher-ups. Huh. She snapped a picture of me with her camera. But this won't work. Pretending to work hard won't get you anywhere. You should take a page out of my book. She held up the camera with a triumphant grin. See this? It's the latest digital camera. A reward from my TV station. Have you heard of digital cameras? They don't need film. You can take a photo, store it, and check it immediately. Bet you've never seen anything like this. Huh. I was too tired to engage, rubbing my temples as she prattled on. So, what? I asked, my tone flat. So, Emily replied. You think missing a few shows will keep me from becoming a star? Think again. The station's executives are planning to heavily promote me. Soon, I'll achieve what I said before. You'll see me anytime, anywhere. And every time you do, you'll feel so inferior you'll wish you could disappear. I sighed, feeling more certain than ever that my decision was the right one. I no longer wanted to teach. I wanted to weld. Weld airplanes, rockets, maybe even aircraft carriers someday. I wanted to do something meaningful, something where my efforts wouldn't be wasted. Perhaps the sparks and the intensity of welding were where I truly belonged. Ever since Matthew's public outburst in the office, I'd noticed my colleagues glancing at me, huddling together to whisper and snicker. It happened often, with both male and female colleagues, and it made the atmosphere dull and tiresome. Days like this felt pointless, draining my energy. There were plenty of ways to realize one's value in life. Today, I submitted a formal report to the principal and began handing over my tasks. Once everything was settled, I'd head to Gansu. I'd been too absolute before, claiming I'd never cross paths with my roommate again. Maybe we could meet again in some other place. The place I was going was a classified unit, one that required secrecy. But when I shared my plans during the handover process, the office was abuzz with speculation. She finally cracked under the pressure of the pay gap and decided to work for a multinational company. Someone remarked. If we had good connections, we wouldn't be stuck here either. Someone else muttered bitterly. What's with the act? She just can't stand seeing her ex-boyfriend and his current girlfriend thriving. One making big bucks in a multinational company, the other a rising star in the entertainment industry. Now she wants to run to a multinational too. Does she even qualify? These days, college grads pop up like bamboo shoots after rain. Another voice chimed in. Graduating without work experience? No multinational would hire her. What would they even hire her to do? Give lectures? Her ambitions are sky high, but her capabilities are paper thin. I walked up to the person talking, tapped on his desk, and said, You seem to have a pretty clear understanding of yourself. His face betrayed his guilt and embarrassment. Finally, he muttered, unwilling to concede. Why are you only calling me out? I'm not the only one who dislikes you. Don't worry, I replied calmly. I'll live a life more content than any of you ever will, without the constant frowns and complaints that plague your days. After completing the handover of my tasks, I stopped going to the school altogether. I stayed home for 2 days to rest, waiting for the car that would take me to report to the launch base. I hadn't expected the rumors in the office to spread so quickly. Emily Young, using her identity as an entertainment star, alluded to me during a televised program. She spoke in a way that seemed heartfelt but was clearly aimed at discrediting me. I really admire those unsung heroes, she said with tears in her eyes. The ones who endure loneliness and injustice, dedicating themselves selflessly to their work even if the world never remembers their names. Unlike some people, who treat teaching as a joke, they leave their students behind the moment fame and fortune come calling, showing no regard for the student's future. It's truly heartbreaking and disappointing. Our society shouldn't reward this kind of behavior. As she spoke, tears rolled down her cheeks, and she forced a smile. Please don't mind me, she added. I just got a bit emotional. After all, they took someone else's spot to stay at the university, someone who truly deserved it. I couldn't help but want to persuade them not to go down a path they'll regret. But if they feel they've done nothing wrong, I'll just let it be. Her remarks aired during prime time, and she privately leaked identifying details about me. In an era when tabloids thrived, her comments caused a stir. Numerous media outlets picked up the story, and someone even uploaded a clear, front-facing photo of me at work. The one Emily had snapped with her digital camera, capturing me with my earbuds in, resting after work hours. The narrative quickly spiraled. People questioned my professionalism, wondering if I was slacking during normal working hours. Although I wasn't bothered by idle speculation, knowing I'd soon be in a remote, isolated place where rumors couldn't reach me, I feared my superiors might take the allegations seriously and penalize me. If that happened, my dream of working with welding sparks might be over. Fortunately, the tables turned. I wasn't the one punished. Emily was. Our school's unique setup, with surveillance cameras installed everywhere, became my shield. When reporters swarmed the campus, the principal pulled up footage for them. The recordings showed me diligently preparing lessons, never slacking during class, and often being the last one to leave the office. The rare moment captured with my earbuds in was just that, a rare instance after hours. Public opinion shifted as the truth came out. But this wasn't the end of it. Emily, as a television personality, often appeared in front of the public. I, on the other hand, was heading to a classified national project. The higher-ups issued a directive to reduce Emily's on-screen presence. Back then, there wasn't a formal term for being blacklisted. But this was essentially what happened. With the directive in place, Emily's career on television came to an abrupt halt. Her fame, like a fleeting bloom, faded just as quickly. She was like a butterfly in late autumn, withering too soon. Emily turned to drinking, eventually landing in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. While hospitalized, she had a meltdown and demanded that Matthew Carter bring me to her. Matthew hesitated. "Sophia Moore won't come," he said. "I've angered her too much. She probably doesn't want to see me." Emily screamed hysterically. "I'm asking you to bring her to me, not for her to see you. Are you going or not? If you don't, I'm leaving too. Matthew Carter, you were just with me. I'm already your second girlfriend. If you break up again this quickly, everyone will say you're a player. Do you even care about your reputation? If you do, go find Sophia Moore and bring her here to see me." Matthew Carter had no idea that while he and Emily Young were arguing in her hospital room, I happened to be at the hospital for a checkup. Passing by their room, I overheard every word and saw the hesitation in Matthew's eyes. Before leaving, I sent an email to the multinational company where Matthew worked, reporting him for falsifying his academic records. During his tenure, the code he wrote had caused several errors, some minor, some significant. These weren't mistakes due to carelessness. They were mistakes born of incompetence. Knowing this, I felt a thorn in my heart, and it seemed only fair that his days wouldn't go smoothly either. Fairness, after all, is a two-way street. Satisfied, I left, never expecting to see him again 5 years later. By that time, my roommate, John Aiken, and I had spent 4 years in the same dorm and another 5 years working together. Our familiarity had grown into mutual irritation. "Hey, old Moore," John called out casually. "Dinner's ready. Rumor has it there's a handsome guy starting today." It's 2003, and the world outside has been celebrating the 21st century for years now. But here we are, still stuck cutting and welding materials. Just the two of us, staring at each other. Even the sparks from our welding rods have lost their thrill. "Let's go. We need some excitement tonight." I gave him a thumbs up. Lonely for years, and now you're all fired up. Impressive. But when we met the newcomer, John bit into his bread with a scowl and muttered, "What rotten luck." The newcomer was Matthew Carter. John, knowing my history with Matthew, had often joined me in mocking him during our idle moments. When there wasn't anyone else to criticize, we dragged Matthew into our conversations, dissecting his flaws. Even sparrows that occasionally landed on high-voltage wires weren't spared from our ridicule. Venting about Matthew had become second nature to us. Matthew, however, seemed oblivious to the hostility. Holding a lunch tray, he approached me and said, "Sophia, long time no see." John snorted, clearly unimpressed. Matthew continued. What a coincidence. It's good to see old classmates again. How have you two been? Especially you, Sophia. It's been years. How's life been treating you? He seemed unaware that no one wanted to engage with him. After a moment of awkward silence, he pressed on. Sophia, don't you have anything to say to me? You're the one who reported me back then, aren't you? I looked up at him briefly but said nothing. My lack of denial seemed to confirm his suspicions. Matthew continued. It had to be you. Over the years, I've wronged no one, at least not intentionally. I was always too afraid of making mistakes, too scared of offending people. If I upset someone, the time and energy needed to mend the relationship would be unbearable for me. Looking back, the only thing I can apologize for is the rumors you endured 5 years ago because of me. Matthew explained that he had resigned from the multinational company on his own accord. He then focused on preparing for exams and was admitted to a full-time graduate program at the same university, in the same field as before. During his 2 years in graduate school, he heard about the gossip I'd faced in the office. I'm sorry, Sophia, he said. I never expected my careless words to cause such a significant shift in your life. All because of a few things I said. You've changed jobs, even the nature of your work, and disappeared without a trace for 5 years. If it weren't for someone in the office who felt guilty and vaguely mentioned your whereabouts, I wouldn't have known you came here. Now I've proactively submitted a transfer request to join you here. A master's degree isn't easy to come by, but I've decided to work as a humble programmer in the aerospace department. This is my choice, so you don't have to feel burdened. Matthew Carter reached out as if to touch my hand. Sophia, I don't blame you for making me lose such a great job. Can you stop holding my unintentional mistakes against me too? A sharp clang echoed through the cafeteria as a piece of metal was dropped onto a tray. How far has the world fallen for someone to be this shameless? John Aiken said, picking up his tray. Before he could act, I stepped forward. Just as John's grip faltered, I grabbed his tray and slammed it down onto Matthew's head. Let me handle this. John, I said. He's vindictive and ruthless. Don't give him a reason to come after you. Soup and sauce dripped from Matthew's hair. He looked as though he was struggling to suppress his anger, wavering between an outburst and physical retaliation. But in the end, he held himself back. Sophia, does this make you feel better? So, can you forgive me? I've spent 5 years preparing to ask for your forgiveness. No one's been more sincere than I am. John chuckled sarcastically. Oops. My grip slipped. Really sorry about that. Without hesitation, he dropped his own tray onto Matthew's head. Matthew's restraint was surprising, but what shocked me more was the camaraderie John and I had developed over the years. At critical moments, we truly stood united. Fearing punishment for wasting food, we quickly fled the scene. That night, as I lay in bed waiting for John, he didn't return. It was frustrating enough that we shared a dorm. Having to search for him in the middle of the night was even more annoying. Grabbing a flashlight, I headed out, only to trip over someone lying on the ground. Blood was streaming from his nose and mouth. It was John. Don't come near me. Get away, he croaked. It's radioactive material. Using his body, he shielded the object from me and urged me to call for help, ensuring that the responders wore proper protective gear to isolate the area. Years of rigorous training kicked in, and I knew John was right. But if he wasn't rescued quickly, he'd die from radiation exposure. For the first time, I realized just how perilous our work truly was. Sacrifice was closer than I'd ever imagined. I shrugged off my jacket and tossed it to John. Use this to wrap the radioactive stone, I told him, though I knew it wouldn't help much. Any delay we could manage was better than nothing. Then, I sprinted toward the radiation prevention unit. Behind me, John, his voice trembling but resolute, called out, Wait, Sophia, tell my dad something for me. I know he and my stepmom had another child, a boy. I know why he gave me this name. Even though he says he loves me, I know he doesn't. I also know why he insisted on sending me to MIT. If I achieve something great, or even sacrifice myself, then I'll be his pride, the brightest glory of the family. But if I die unknown and forgotten, he'll be relieved to have shed a burden. Don't think I don't know. On the day he sent me to university, He'd already considered me dead. There was hatred in John's eyes as he mustered the strength to finish his thoughts. I stood rooted to the spot, watching him. The blood spreading across his clothes became more vivid, more horrifying with each passing second. Finally, he coughed up a mouthful of blood and said hoarsely, "It's okay. Don't panic. Don't cry. I'll be fine." This was my responsibility, to inspect the materials. If it wasn't me, someone else would have done it. And if I hadn't done it thoroughly, it would have been someone else lying here instead. But don't worry. The radioactive level of this material isn't very high. It's only enough to affect me. He looked at me with unwavering eyes. "Sophia, you've been by my side the longest. You're my comrade and my family. Make sure that when others inspect materials, they wear proper protective gear. Don't let them be careless like me." I fought to keep my emotions in check, forcing myself to stay clear-headed. As quickly as I could, I reported everything to my superiors. Then, I stubbornly stood my ground, insisting, "There are suspicious individuals among the new recruits. I request immediate approval to investigate their backgrounds." The leadership's expressions turned grave. "This must be thoroughly investigated," they said firmly. "Someone bringing radioactive materials here. It's a serious matter." Matthew Carter stood off to the side, his face pale. "I hope it's not you," he muttered under his breath. When John Aiken's death was finally reported, it was only after the radio station aired a story about his sacrifice. His biological father and stepmother had been notified but delayed handling his affairs. They feared the radioactive materials might still pose a risk to them, even after the workplace repeatedly assured them that everything had been decontaminated. When John's ashes were finally claimed, I sat on a flat stone slab at the base. The vast, barren land stretched endlessly around me, and I stared at the yellow earth for a long time without blinking. Someone approached from behind and handed me a water bottle. "Drink a little," Matthew said, crouching beside me. I caught the scent of alcohol. "It took quite some effort to get this," he continued. "Just a little. It might help. I've already taken leave for you," he added. "Everyone understands. Your superiors and colleagues all sympathize, knowing how close you and John were." I turned to him and asked coldly, "Sympathize with what?" "Sympathize with a stranger who thinks he has the right to take leave on my behalf." Matthew wiped his face with his hand, clearly frustrated. "I've already humbled myself enough. What more do you want? Are you upset about being here? If you are, then leave. No one's forcing you to stay. You chose to come here, didn't you? If you wanted another job, it's not like you couldn't find one. You chose this. So don't blame me." I couldn't ignore the strange feeling in my chest anymore. "What's wrong with this place?" I asked, my voice steady. Matthew's demeanor shifted. He took the water bottle back, his voice quieter now. "I know what you're suspicious about, but it's not me. This is the only place that treats me as an equal. If I want to start over, I always have that chance here. My abilities may not be enough, and my mindset might not have been right, but here, I have the opportunity to improve." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "But that company I worked for, they wouldn't. I didn't quit voluntarily. They didn't want to pay me severance. They threatened that if they fired me, my records would look bad. So I had no choice but to resign. My life has faced so much injustice," Matthew Carter said. "But the society we live in tells me this is an era where, if you want to change what's unfair, you always have a chance to do so. You shouldn't think of me this way." After saying this, Matthew left. But I didn't believe him. Matthew decided to stay and work here as a low-level programmer, writing endless lines of code, perhaps only to see a single line be useful after a year. Meanwhile, the issue of the radioactive stone that appeared at the facility remained unresolved. No culprit was identified. The leadership stated, "If we let suspicion dictate our actions, everyone at the facility could be a suspect. If we refuse to work with people we suspect, this facility might as well shut down." I closed my eyes briefly, suppressing my doubts, and returned to my work. About 3 days later, a visitor arrived, Emily Young. She had come to see Matthew Carter. At some point, they had confirmed their relationship, and at some point, they had gotten married. "Surprised," Emily said with a smirk. Did you think Matthew would keep chasing after you forever? Don't be ridiculous. I told you. You'll never compare to me. Emily seemed completely unaffected by the disciplinary action she'd faced earlier. In fact, her complexion looked better than ever, likely because she no longer had the stress of appearing on television every day. Her demeanor had also grown far more refined, exuding a sense of wealth and privilege. I found myself wondering, why have I never heard anything about your family before? You always seem to have trendy, fun gadgets, an endless supply of beautiful clothes, and access to the latest electronics from around the world. I can't help but envy you. Emily laughed lightly. My father is a wealthy businessman abroad. He travels to different countries for work. So getting these things is easy. It was too fast. Nearly as soon as something was produced, Emily had it in her hands. Her father's business dealings seemed almost unnaturally convenient. I thought I had finally figured out who was behind all this. Just as I was about to report it, Matthew appeared, his face dark with anger, blocking my path. Matthew Carter, you're Chinese. Don't you always say you love your country? Why are you stopping me? After a long silence, Matthew sighed deeply. Some things don't need to be done by you, Sophia. Maybe I'm not as despicable as you think I am. Pressed him, trying to confirm. What are you talking about? When I first arrived at the base, he began cautiously, I tried to figure out why you wouldn't forgive me. If it wasn't about the office incident, it could only be something from another life. After all, I don't think I've done anything in this life to make you resent me this much. I asked him directly, when did you wake up to this supposed past life? Matthew laughed bitterly, the smile tinged with self-deprecation. I've been having fragmented dreams since you left 5 years ago. The dreams are so vivid, so detailed, that they can't be explained any other way. The only way I could make sense of them was to think of them as memories from a past life. Matthew continued, the things I've seen in my dreams, they go beyond what you might remember. In the dreams, after you died from a heart attack, Emily returned to the country. She constantly probed me for answers about technical matters. Seemingly harmless questions but carefully worded. It was 2068. And by then, the government had introduced many new regulations. Certain industries overlapped and came under strict controls. Emily used me to extract critical information. At first, I suspected her. But eventually, I confirmed the truth. She had been working for foreign entities all along. By the time I realized this, I had already leaked too much classified information. I was terrified of being discovered and losing everything I had left. When I confronted her again, accusing her directly, she didn't deny it. Instead, she retaliated aggressively, shutting me down completely. He said everything that happened in the past life was because of his foolishness. Matthew Carter ended up killing Emily Young by accident. But fortunately, in this life, none of that has happened. I deliberately waited until you were about to leave to marry her, to lower her guard, planning everything step by step to uncover evidence of her betraying the country. Matthew explained. Including John Aiken? Was he part of your plan too? I asked. I've already told you. Stop assuming the worst about me. Matthew replied sharply. That was just an accident. I couldn't prevent everything Emily did. She would have noticed something was wrong. John's death wasn't intentional. So did you choose to let John go? Or was it because of the soup and gravy poured on your head in the cafeteria that day? I said coldly. A vengeful, ruthless man like you. What a piece of work. A heavy weight settled on my chest. In our past life, John hadn't died. He'd even video called me the day before my heart attack, joking that he was lucky never to have married. Otherwise, he'd have ended up like me, old and alone. I had laughed at him and said he'd pay for his lack of good deeds in this life by owing them in the next. I wondered now if my words had been prophetic. Matthew placed both hands on my shoulders, his voice gentle but firm. Sophia, nothing is immutable. Haven't I already taken a completely different path in this life compared to the last? Even when I doubted whether those dreams were real or just my imagination, I still chose to report Emily Young for you. Let me handle it. You don't need to bear this burden. I will. Matthew must have thought himself heroic, ready to sacrifice anything, even his life, to exact justice. And he did report Emily. To ensure there were no loose ends, he timed it perfectly. catching her red-handed as she attempted to plant radioactive material again. Emily was arrested on the spot. When she saw Matthew, she nearly lost her mind. Why would you do this to me? I had better options. But I still married you. All these years. You've spent my money. And now you're betraying me? You're nothing but an ungrateful scumbag. Shut up, Matthew said coldly. Take her away. Even as Emily continued cursing, Matthew's gaze remained fixed on me. Emily turned her furious eyes toward me and screamed, Why? Why am I better than you in every way? Yet the man I fought for still betrays me to help you? Why did he choose you? It's not fair. I'm not willing to accept this. Her cries echoed as she was dragged away. Matthew then approached me solemnly. Sophia, if I truly have been reborn and we both started over at the same point, I wouldn't make the same choices. I'd try harder to win your heart, to ensure no one else could take your place. Matthew's words were an implicit admission of his past feelings for others. Sophia, I've made amends for all the wrongs I did in our past life. Haven't I? Can we start over? I gagged at the thought. Stop deluding yourself. Emily, desperate to reduce her sentence, accused Matthew in court of sharing in her illegal earnings. She revealed that Matthew, fully aware of her true identity, had turned a blind eye for 5 years. Worse, she claimed he had even occasionally helped her, whether intentionally or unintentionally. For instance, although Emily had arrived in Gansu early, she had planted radioactive stones before formally joining the unit. Taking advantage of Matthew's facilitation, Matthew was subsequently investigated and found complicit. He was convicted as an accomplice and sentenced to prison. When Matthew was imprisoned, he couldn't believe it. Gripping his head tightly, he muttered over and over, No. I should have been promoted. I should have been rewarded and honored. Why did I choose the country? Only for the country to betray me. And you, Sophia Moore. I chose you. Yet you can't wait to see me burn in hell. Why are all of you treating me this way? I looked at him and said calmly, You've only ever chosen yourself, Matthew. And if you end up in hell, consider it repayment for the life you owe me. Justice served. You deserve it. After Matthew was sent to prison, I took a bouquet of flowers to John Aiken's small grave to pay my respects. Years passed, and I found peace in my work. The sparks of welding became my purpose, lighting a path forward. I no longer sought approval or recognition. Instead, I built things that mattered, shaping a future far removed from the pain of the past. Standing beneath the vast sky at my latest assignment, I breathed deeply, feeling a quiet satisfaction. Life's endpoint remained unknown, but it no longer mattered. I was no longer running. I was moving forward, steady and unshaken, ready for whatever came next.